Haas made a bold move during 2020 to drop both of their experienced drivers. To replace them, they recruited not one, but two rookies, with a combined 0 years experience in Formula 1. I think it's quite obvious that this move was motivated by money, but should Haas regret signing two rookies for the 2021 season? Let's have a look. My name's Andy, and this is Behind the Drive. If you're willing to believe the Drive to Survive narrative, Haas were arguably pushed into a corner going into 2021. Their finances were in a sorry state, and they were in desperate need of a new source of revenue. Their drivers at the time, Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen, had significant Formula 1 experience and were doing well given their limited machinery, but neither driver had significant financial backing, and there were other options for the team knocking on the door. So in their place, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin were chosen for those drives. In this video I'll take a look at the decision Gunther Steiner took in 2020, and whether it was a mistake to pick those rookies. And as always, if you enjoy the video then hit the like button, and if you're new to Behind the Drive then please consider subscribing. The 2020 dilemma which led to an all-rookie lineup. Going into 2020, the Haas team were looking to bounce back from a relatively catastrophic 2019, where the team scored just 28 points and finishing 9th in the Constructors' Championship, their worst performance since coming into Formula 1 in 2016. Alongside all this, they had been at the centre of one of the most controversial sponsorships in Formula 1 history with their title sponsor, Rich Energy. The damage done by Rich Energy by not paying the team for their sponsorship left the team in a poor position and suing the energy drink company. It meant Haas's 2020 challenger was disappointing to say the least, scoring just 3 points across the season with a best finish of 9th position for Romain Grosjean at the Eiffel Grand Prix in Germany. It was by far their worst season result as they ended up 9th in the standings. It left the team principal, Gunther Steiner, in a position where he needed to make a change. His job was at risk, as the team's owner, Gene Haas, was clearly running out of patience and in a position where he was considering selling up entirely. So a change was needed, and from a financial perspective, Steiner was left looking for sponsorships between races and trying to find a way to replace their driver lineup which had been left since 2017. And this is where Steiner made his bold move, recruiting two rookies picked straight out of Formula 2. In a move which would see the least experienced driver lineup in Formula 1 since Toro Rosso partnered Max Verstappen with Carlos Sainz in 2015. With Haas struggling for money, the team's first announcement was for the Russian driver, Nikita Mazepin, a driver that's had a significant amount of Formula 1 testing experience with drives in a Force India car between 2016 and 18, as well as drives in a Mercedes car more recently. Mazepin's seat was clearly funded by his father, and as such the whole team became the Uralkali Haas Formula 1 team for 2021. Now, I need to pause here as I've never shared my thoughts on Nikita Mazepin. Quite frankly, I tend to avoid giving him any airtime at all. What's clear though is that Mazepin wasn't chosen for his talent. His actions off track towards the end of 2020 were disgusting. His apology was dreadful, and there's still a line that he said in there that grates on me to this day, which is when he said that he needed to hold himself to a higher standard as a Formula 1 driver. No, you shouldn't hold yourself to a higher standard because of the category you race in. You should hold yourself to a higher standard simply as a human being. To make it worse, the Haas team swept the whole thing under the rug and just declared that they would be sorting the matter internally. This isn't the way to approach a situation which has been so publicly shared and seen. It's just wrong. And to make it worse, his on-track performances haven't done much to help his reputation. It's worth mentioning at this point that both drivers in this team have struggled, and the 2021 Haas car has been pretty disappointing to say the least. But certainly early on in this season, Mazepin struggled to get to grips with his car, and as such had a number of unnecessary spins and crashes which would have hurt the team. Ultimately though, he's struggling with a difficult car, which is not really a surprise. There are also moments that make the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end, when he simply gets in the way of the other drivers on track, which creates some terrifying situations. Take the Spanish Grand Prix for example, where he impeded Lando Norris's qualifying lap, or failing to move out of the way for Perez under blue flag conditions in Portugal. It's disappointing to say the least, but based on his track record in the junior categories, it's hardly a surprise. Then you have the other driver that the team picked for 2021, Mick Schumacher. The Ferrari Junior is definitely talented enough to join the sport after winning the Formula 2 championship in 2020, but at the same time, he's a rookie, and has always struggled in his first season in a new category, with it generally requiring a couple of years before he's able to perform at his best. And as such, Schumacher has also struggled so far this season. The German driver does also bring a financial benefit, with his name alone attracting sponsors and the Ferrari team backing, meaning his salary has been reportedly at least partially covered by the Italian team. So this means that both drivers for the Haas team have some form of financial backing for this season, which is helping the team to stay afloat. But Schumacher has, for want of a better phrase, looked a bit lost in Formula 1 so far. He's been receiving guidance and support from his compatriot Sebastian Vettel, but this has been on the periphery given the drivers race for two separate teams. Schumacher is the quicker of the two drivers at Haas, and so has been left in the lead role at the team for 2021, a situation that he's definitely not ready for. And this was known beforehand based on his rise through the feeder series, so it seems like Ferrari have probably let a German driver down in terms of his development by leaving him in the Haas seat. I'm still confident that Schumacher will do well in Formula 1, but this is a tough environment for a rookie, which means we've seen a number of incidents for Mick which have caused an awful lot of car damage similar to that of his teammate. What both of these drivers need is an experienced teammate to lean on for advice and support. They're going to struggle to develop and improve as a team without any experienced drivers. The impact of having two rookie drivers. So as a result of the Haas team pairing for this season, the team have faced some problems. I've already briefly touched on the fact that both drivers have had their moments in 2021, but the longer term impacts of this are emerging. The reason that the team has these drivers in the first place is the fact that they have a limited budget. Both drivers offer some form of financial benefit through sponsorship or other media attention, but the Haas team have racked up a huge repair bill due to all the incidents that these drivers have been involved in, and despite all that cost, they still sit bottom of the championship. To add to all this, tensions are rising between the two drivers on track. At the Dutch Grand Prix, the pair had an incident in qualifying which saw Sebastian Vettel's lap compromised, which dropped the Aston Martin driver out in Q1. Neither driver was penalised in the end, thanks to the fact that there were a number of cars in a bit of a traffic jam throughout that session. But even so, it was the two Haas drivers squabbling for position on track over who would get the tow. They then came together in the race as well, in a hair-raising moment where Mazepin forced Schumacher to the right up against the pit entry during the Grand Prix. This was a moment that triggered a lot of criticism for the Russian driver, as his antics on the racetrack from Formula 2 re-emerge in Formula 1. During the qualifying session in Monza, Mazepin was again complaining about the on-track behaviour of his teammate, despite the German driver following and being part of a train of cars. But this squabbling results in a position where they're damaging each other's chances over the course of a weekend, which is never helpful for a backmarket setup. With this potentially toxic environment, the team will struggle to break into the midfield if they continue down this path. Alongside this, the team haven't been developing this year's car, in favour of looking forward to 2022. But that means that the driver pair have been delivering a limited amount of development feedback to the team, with it instead being focused on car setup changes. This will be a cause of concern for Haas going into these new regulations, where the team will be developing their chassis. Will the team personnel trust the feedback that they receive from the drivers? This has been an issue for the Haas team in the past, with Steiner declaring at the end of 2019 that he should have trusted the driver's judgment and feedback in terms of diagnosing the issues with that car. So given, at that point in time, that the team had experienced drivers with multiple years worth of experience under their belts, is it going to follow a similar pattern when the two drivers don't have that experience? It means that the team are in a state of unknown heading into the new regulations. The team can't rely on either of their drivers in this current position, but they're also in this place out of necessity, so it's a tricky situation in more ways than one. Things are also difficult for Günther Steiner. He's in a position where one of his driver's fathers has a rather large stake in the team. Dmitry Mazepin owns a significant stake in Uralkali, the title sponsor of the Haas Formula 1 team, and as such, they seem to have significant influence over the team's livery, even if they opted not to pick their firm's colours to do so. Nikita Mazepin complained in the early stages of the season that his chassis was heavier than Schumacher's, and thus leaving him a sitting duck on the straights. Steiner dropped this as not having a material impact, but before long it was stated that the chassis would be changed. And after speaking to the media, Mazepin even said that some emails had changed hands between his father and the team, and it seemed like there was a deal done to ensure that his chassis was replaced. This is yet another worrying situation. It seems like the team had a driver that was struggling, decided it was to do with his car, and then the transactional relationship between the sponsor and the team turned hostile. This is also an additional cost for the team that they wouldn't have wanted nor expected, and given both drivers have never been too far from damaging their cars anyway in any given session on any given race weekend, it must feel like it's a risk for the team to be investing this money and taking that away from their 2022 development fund. The future of Haas. So the situation that Haas finds themselves in is pretty bleak. They have two inexperienced rookie drivers that aren't receiving the mentorship and support that they need to thrive. The team is also at risk from a financial perspective, with there being a huge dependency on their new title sponsor, and there have been many reports that the team's up for sale altogether. Realistically, the driver pairing is unlikely to change for 2022. At the time of recording, there have been some reports that Mick Schumacher is being rumoured to occupy the second Alfa Romeo seat, but that seems improbable in my view. Mazepin will certainly stay. After all, his father sun's his seat, and without that money I fear the team wouldn't really exist at all. They could improve though with more experience in the sport, and with a potentially improved car for 2022, it could lead to a step up the order and an opportunity for the pair to actually compete with other teams and drivers. Although given the situation the team is in, this feels rather unlikely, as despite spending more of their resources on next year, they don't have the experience that so many other teams in the sport have in terms of developing a front-running car. If the team does end up going up for sale, who knows whose hands it'll end up in. There is always the Rich Energy rumour, but I'll save worrying about that one for another video. Either way, it seems like Gene Haas, the team's owner, is in a tough situation. Does he sell up now on the promise that the team have been developing ahead of 2022? Or does he sell up after next year if they remain a backmarket team, which would significantly reduce the value of the team altogether? It's difficult to comment on whether the team should regret recruiting two rookies for 2021. Mazepin's presence in one of those seats is a financial dependency, and there are a few drivers out there that would be able to offer the same level of financial backing. Schumacher also offers some media and sponsor benefits, and is being supported by Ferrari. So although he isn't bringing in too much financially to the team, he is one of the cheapest driver options available. And for a driver of his talent, it's a good move for the team. But to have these two drivers in the team together feels like a mistake, especially given the crash damage costs the team have incurred throughout the season so far, and the fact that they remain fairly unlikely to be in a better position for 2022. For me, it was the wrong call, but at the same time, I'm not the team's accountant, and so I don't really know how bad those finances got during 2020. What do you think? Should Haas regret signing two rookie drivers for 2021, and has the team's decision backfired? Let me know in the comments, remember to hit the like button, and thanks for watching.